Alright, good morning, kalimera, guten tag, bonjour, happy Venus Day for those of you who are watching this. So I have been wanting all week to get ready to film a video for Samhain, for this full moon eclipse. Come on and do a bit of a reading for you guys, talk a little bit about the festival, and I didn't get around to doing a a proper video where it's beautiful, nice and edited, and I've gotten a really big chance to think about what it is that I want to say, because life has been busy. I have been thrown into the eclipse turmoil just like everybody else, and that's perfectly okay. So I thought that I would quickly come on and do this for you guys in a live format, so that you guys can watch it later, and yeah, so I'm here for that. So I wanted to start off by saying that first of all, I have this really big need to give this really big thank you to all of the people who have supported me here on YouTube, here on Instagram, in my business in general. Since I started 7 years ago, I have, while I was doing my morning practice this morning, really coming to terms with the fact that there are people who have been supported my work, who have been supported by my work, and yeah, since I began this journey 7 years ago, and that is a gift in its side of itself. It is a gift that I have really been trying to I've had no choice, and life has shown me that it's really important that during this time we are, for those of us who have the space to do so, to count our blessings, because right now not everyone gets this gift, and I think the full moon eclipse that is peaking tomorrow and this Samhain is also helping us come to terms with, while things are getting ready to die, to compost, and to transform, just how much it is that we have in our lives, as this peak creates chaos and turmoil collectively, so that hopefully our humanity can get its ass into fucking gear, and shift things finally. So in my personal practice, Samhain and this time kind of changes, the portal of this changes for me. Part of the rose lineage that I'm a part of, we are not just looking at Samhain as a day on October 31st, that is this calendar date that has been chosen because our ancestors didn't really do that either. They didn't look at Sabbats or celebrations through a calendar and pointed it out on a piece of paper and was like, yeah, okay, this is when this happens. As most of us know, they followed natural cycles, and so it was nature that told them when it was time to celebrate. And so when I was thinking about this, I celebrate three. For me, I celebrate three key parts of Samhain: calendar Samhain, solar Samhain, and lunar Samhain. And usually my version of lunar Samhain, so a lunar Samhain is when there is a new moon in Scorpio. It's the first one, and this year I have been feeling that actually this eclipse portal is the opening of Samhain, and that we are very much already in that energy. And so lunar Samhain, I'm going to experience two of them in my world. So I'm considering this year I have gotten the guidance that both the full moon and the new moon are Samhain moons, and I will consider both of them as portals. So that means we have 2 weeks, 14 days or so of really peak Samhain energy, and also somebody who consider basically up until Yule, I am in that Samhain energy anyway, but that peak, that concentrated energy to be speaking to my ancestors, to be speaking to my elevated dead, to be speaking to my death goddesses and my death guides, such as the Morgan and Lilith, who are both very, very present for me this year. I mean, Morgan is present for me every Samhain, but Lilith made herself known in Hecate as well, and more. This year, what I have come to understand that Samhain is loud, it is proud. And there's many people who are being called to celebrate it this year, both those who are regular celebrators and those who are not. And there's a reason for that, I believe, and some of which we're going to explore through our reading, and some of which I'm going to talk about now shortly also. So if you have hopped on this video after the fact that it has been posted, or you jump on live, is to realize, sorry. So what is Samhain? For those of you who don't know what it is. So Samhain is, in pagan culture, it is before Halloween became a mainstream marketed thing that most people think is just prevalent in the US. Many cultures around the world, but in particular Celtic, Gaulish, and Anglo-Saxon cultures celebrated this idea of celebrating their elevated dead or their ancestors, and this used to come during a Halloween time. Pumpkin carvings, for example, is not a tradition that is new, creating angry, scary looking faces were done so that those houses would be protected, because on Halloween's Eve, during this portal, the veil becomes extremely thin, and all of those ancestors, all of those dead ghosts, those who roam the land in a plane of which we cannot often see, this plane becomes a lot more visible. And so pumpkin carving, for example, or creating lanterns and all of these kind of things were ways to deter these spirits, to protect the homes, to protect people. And so this is a tradition that many of us know, that it's been very much publicized, and to wear scary costumes has become very much publicized, but it comes in ancient roots and ancient traditions. But very much this was a time of understanding that this is the last harvest festival of a series of 3. I spoke about this in my previous video that I posted, that we begin with Lunasa or Lamas. This is our first grains of the season in ancient agricultural cultures. And then we would have Mabon, or fall equinox, which would be the second and would be a time of celebrating deep bounty. And then we come to Samhain, which we understand these are the last harvests. These are the last grains that we're going to metaphorically as well as physically be able to pluck from the ground. We're getting ready to prepare, to ferment, to store, because we understand that winter is coming, death is coming, and before this period we celebrate those who have passed away in the winters before, who have passed away in the lives in life before, and we realize we honor them, their rightful place as a part of our lineage and as a part of our family. And we also know that in the deep dark they are capable of consoling us and giving us guidance, because they have certain lessons that they may have learned, for example, that we don't realize right now, but we realize that their new perspective allows them to give us guidance. So yeah, Samhain is a time of ancestor praise, ancestor worship, realizing that our life comes from a long lineage of people, and not just our life, but also the passions that we have, the things that we get called to in this life, whether you're an artist or a musician, or you're a woman or a witch, or a card slinger, that or a baker or whatever, that there are other people who have been long gone, who have made a place for you in this world, and so it's a time to honor them. It's also the time to honor the death in our own lives. We come to this period of realizing that, we have harvested plenty perhaps, or what is it that we have harvested? But perhaps there is things that we have picked and we have plucked that no longer serve us, that we no longer require. So we begin to get ready to compost them. And I also see very much Samhain. I had a wonderful tarot reading for myself for the Samhain period, so that I could connect to this time just as much as holding space for other people to do so, with the beautiful Kellyanne, who I think I mentioned in my previous video, but she's just always been a source of inspiration and support and strength since I began my YouTube journey many years ago. And so came and realizing, and while I was talking to her through this reading, remembering that Samhain is this time of the deep dark. It's like being back in the void, in the womb, in the anima mundi, the place where we remember darkness not just as this scary unknown place, but remembering that we were born out of darkness. We sat in our mother's womb and it was dark and we were comforted. And Scorpio season and this watery nature of Scorpio, as well as Samhain, very much has this essence. And I see Samhain as new moon energy, right? If we were going to think about it as a kind of cycle, this is for me the new moon, or these moments where we're deeply, deeply waning and it's just about to hit that place. And so new moons in a cycle for me are a moment where we listen. We listen to the dreams that have been planted in the cosmic void, in the earth, in our own wombs if you have one, or in the dark in general. It's realizing that before I came here, before I came to this planet, there were seedlings that were ingested into me, right? Not planted into me. And that over time, at the right conditions, these seeds start to shake and crackle and move. And they start to remind me that, remember, child, I planted a dream. And Samhain for me is really, really a time to start to get really, really, really quiet, so that in the void I can begin to sense, to hear, and to listen to what is that seedling trying to tell me, what seedling would like to pop next. And so it's very much a time contemplating and listening to that dream. And then over time, that dream isn't going to unveil itself or to grow straight away. That's what trusting the wheel, what trusting the seasons is for. But here we begin. For many, Samhain is known as the witch's new year. The new year for us magical folk is often not all the way at the 31st of December, but is now. This is our time of celebration, of strength. For I think if you walk the magical path and you truly walk it, and I'm not gatekeeping and I'm not hating or disapproving or denying that anyone who sees this differently, their practice is not legitimate. Absolutely not. But in my personal perspective, is that realizing that when you are a magical person, when you are engaging in magical practice, there is something so deeply, it feels like a homecoming when we come back to the dark. Oh, I feel a little bit emotional about that, actually. A little bit, yeah. Oh, because we know this place. We know that the dark is somewhere that is not scary. The dark, in fact, is somewhere that is full of potential. And that is what the Witch's New Year and Samhain gets to remind us of. Whew. Yeah, so elevated dead, like I mentioned before. Well, elevated dead, ancestors of there are many kinds. When I am often calling in ceremony, I talk about ancestors of spirit, ancestors of blood, and ancestors of place, of the land that I live on, and being honoring that time. And some of the ways that you may consider honoring them is putting them on your altar and make an altar dedicated to them, or maybe you make them a meal, or maybe you sit down and you make your grandmother's favorite recipe for those that you love and you speak good words on it, or you ask for her guidance as you cook and you put in the ingredients. That's one thing. A couple of things that you can do. We have been talking about it in my community because I have felt this energy so strong, and I feel with the eclipse it's even more so, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about it before we get into the reading, because I do not want this video being too long this time around. Because Samhain is associated to the dark and to endings, banishing, binding, cord cutting, cleansing, protection. This is a beautiful time for that. Sometimes before we can anchor in new things, we have to be willing to let go. We have to be willing to dispel the things in our life that absolutely do not serve us. And this is a perfect time to do that. We're actually going to be, so on November 5th, which is right before what I consider solar Samhain, and solar Samhain is when we experience 15 degrees of Scorpio, and this is what I consider solar Samhain, and it's also something that I celebrate, aside from lunar Samhain, which I spoke about before, and obviously calendar Samhain, which is on the 31st. In my spaces, we're going to be creating, if you're living here in Cyprus and you would like to come to Limassol, we are doing a cord cutting ritual with my beautiful friend Tina. Sometimes there's things that we inherit. There are cord cuttings through contracts and people in our lives that we no longer, that this story, this narrative is done. Maybe cord cutting in regards to how much time is consumed in, our attention to social media, for example. But there's also cord cutting that sometimes that we must do that comes ancestrally. So the belief systems or patterns that we've inherited that we just luggage on top of us onto our shoulders that have never been ours to carry, but we acquire them, because that is just sometimes what happens when we are born into this world. We have come to understand more and more through epigenetics that we carry up to 7 generations of trauma, from not just trauma, but other things that we inherit from our ancestors. Sometimes we don't need to carry these things, so we get to lay them down back onto the metaphorical altar, back to the land, and allow Gaia, allow the void, allow the Dark Mother in her many forms to take that away from us and to transform it. So that's another thing. So binding, banishing. I'm not going to mention them all now, but if you want to work, something that I talk about is herbs and crystals, right? If you talk about if you're working with crystals, a lot of dark crystals or something that, you know, black, brown, reddish, these are all very Samhain related. Dark goddesses, like I mentioned before, death goddesses, sex goddesses, rebirth goddesses, goddesses of magic and witchcraft, of war. These are all gods and goddesses that give us something to learn from. Because something that I often talk about, and something that Samhain gets to remind us, is that we are not solely good, we're not solely light, we came here to be whole. And so looking towards archetypes that remind us that there is a warrior in us, and there is someone who is willing to go to battle, and there is someone who knows what it means to be dirty and to be bloody and to live in mud and bones, and this is part of who we are. And I mentioned Lilith and Morrigan and Hecate, and Odin, who I like to work with at this time, or Hel with one L of the Norse pantheon, or Inanna and Erishkagel. These are all beautiful beings to work with. Plants, I'm not going to talk all about them now, but if you take a look at Martian plants, plants that are ruled by Mars, plants that are ruled by Pluto, I'll give you an example. For example, nettle is ruled by Mars, or valerian has come very strong during this time. Ash and yew and hawthorn, these are all Celtic plants, Celtic trees that are known to help us experience the other world and help us move between the veil. And there are many more, but I'm going to leave it at that. The thing I do want to talk about very quickly before I get on to our reading is about our eclipse that peaks tomorrow. I do not remember the exact time it peaks tomorrow. I forgot to look that up. But it's sometime tomorrow. So we have, obviously our sun is in Scorpio right now. Our moon, our full moon eclipse is going to happen in Taurus. These two opposing sister signs that teach us about what we can see, what is living, what is tangible, our senses, and then what lives in the underworld, what lives behind the scenes, what is deep, dark, and expansive. You know, life and death, bounty, and what is barren. These are two signs. What is breadth and can be seen and touched in front of us, and what goes down deep below the surface. One thing that I like to talk about is that for me personally, in my practice, and this is not for everyone, but this is something that I often share with people, that during eclipses, for me, this is not a time to be doing magic. So I do magic before, I do magic after, but I do not do magic during. And because this energy, this power is eclipsed, whatever power is being sent our way during our full moon is kind of distorted and disjointed. And I see eclipses as a time to get the hell out of my own way, to no longer think about what I think is required, and to allow source, spirit, the elementals, my guides, the earth, whoever it is that you are working with, to take over. Because sometimes those things that are all-seeing, sometimes those tree devas who have existed since the beginning of time see and know far more than my small human mind can. And sometimes, so what is brought into my life or what is taken away has to be trusted. I have to give up and surrender the thinking that I know better, because the truth is I don't always know better. So letting that go. So I don't do magic during this time, and I often recommend my clients or my friends or the people that are in my spheres and in my communities that we don't do things. Maybe you want to journal about things. Maybe you want to make reflections upon what is happening and engage with them in this way, but I would try and not force my will upon to what is happening. This eclipse feels really potent. It feels really magical. It really feels, for me personally in my life, the way that it has played out, it has been a lot kinder to me than previous eclipses, but it has still moved things out of my way that have been shocking and perhaps challenging. But I remember now more than ever that these things are happening for me. And I know might not be the experience for everyone. I know that for some people this eclipse will be harder than for others. But I do feel for those of you who experienced an eclipse that was quite intense during the springtime, this eclipse is the closing of that cycle, but in a much lighter way. It's like the last remnants that you have been unwilling to let go and have been holding on to a little bit too tightly so that the new can come in. Those are being moved. And for others, because of your own placements and the signs that you're in, this might be a little bit more intense, and that's okay. Before I get into the reading, I do want to say one more thing. I started off this this video, talking a little bit about how gratitude has been working into my life. And I really, really think this is a message for me, but it's also a message collectively. I have been thinking about how even amongst all the chaos and all the changes and feeling a lot, that I am one very, very lucky human being, because I woke up this morning and I am in a house that is safe. I have food, I have water to drink, I have knowledge and education that if I lose certain things, I will have the tools to be able to start again. And not everyone has that right now. And today, every day is a reminder at this moment that waking up in this environment and having those basic needs met is already the gift, and everything else is an added bonus. I also have been feeling that many of us who have been called to embracing our Dharma, for those of us who are not in direct conflict, many of us will continue to get things that we have been asking for. But it is a reminder that those things are really important and we get to celebrate them. But there's a reason that we are getting those resources and tools. And if we're not using these resources and tools for the benefit of others, we have not fully fulfilled our purpose. And I really, really get that calling now more than ever, and we will continue to get that calling and that reminder as things go on, because I have gotten the message in my own discussion with my own guides, as well as this discussion, just the general feeling and the gist of what I understand is that we're going through a metamorphosis as a species, and things will get harder before they get easier. There will be a lot more chaos and a lot more instability, so things can really, really be shaken up before we find a solution. So it's now more than ever that it's really, really important that we remember that what is gifted to us is so that it can be shared and it can be used for those who do not have those same privileges right now. We are not saving anybody, we are not infantilizing anybody, but we remember that we are stronger together and that we need to be part of the collective, part of the people who redistribute the balance of power. So that after that my little spiel is done, I'm going to pull some cards for you and we're going to see what the messages are for this season, for this period, right? So we're going to be, I'm going to be reading throughout the whole of Samhain, which will be up to Yule, which is December 22nd this year. But really for the concentration of this portal, which I begin, has already kind of started, but will the peak beginning begins tomorrow with our eclipse, and it will finish with our new moon, which is on the 13th of November. So for these next 12 days for this portal, what is it that we need to know as well as for this eclipse? I am using the Shadowscapes tarot, which is one of my first and one of my favorites. I am using the Magic of the Flowers deck, and I am also going to be pulling some dragon energy, this dragon deck that is by Diana Cooper. I will be placing all of those in the description so you can see what it is that I was using. So, connect with our elevated ancestors and our high selves. Please connect me deeply. Please connect me clearly to the cards. May I understand what guidance is required and needed for these beautiful beings who are watching. What do they need to know for this full moon eclipse? What do they know for this Samhain portal? What can bring them power? What are they ready to let go? Please let me know. Amen, Awena, Ho, and blessed be. Okay, so we have some cards, we have some intensity. Let me also pull some, just so that I can get a fuller picture. 1 second, and I will of course show it to you guys. Okay, so we're gonna start with our tarot cards, and I'm going to start with these. You know what? I'm gonna move these around a little bit, because this is gonna go like this. Okay, so there is absolutely no doubt that part of this eclipse is a little bit or a lot chaotic. There is a lot of energy I feel from these cards, that there are a lot of endings. There is this sensation because we have the Tower as our back of our deck here, which, by the way, this is one of my favorite Tower cards. And so it's a reminder that, and also Tower is ruled by Mars, right? And it's got Mars, it's got this eclipse season, this Scorpio. I mean, I'm also doing this while the moon is in Aries, which is also a Martian sign. And we have our sun in Mars also, obviously, too, because Scorpio's old ruler is Mars. So there is this reminder that, yes, we are going through a little bit of a Tower moment. That is the underlying energy right now. But it is a reminder, as always, that the Tower is a gift if we are willing to listen to it. It is a moment where we are reminded that sometimes the floorboards must be stripped so that real and true foundations can be built. The next card, the first card that we actually received in this series, there's 4 of them. The first one is the 5 of Wands. Because of how much energy is going on, there will be a lot of chaos right now from a lot of people. And people might get agitated, violent, and competitive. And the clear message that I'm getting through this reading is a reminder that just because people come to you with competitive energy and try to pull you into a debate does not mean you have to take the bait. And this is a really, really important reminder. Yes, there are going to be a moment which is very, very, very important that you stand your ground and you stand your place. But it's very, very, very important that you do this from a place of centeredness. right? Don't let everything that is flying around you, because there might be lots of distractions and options and opinions and people saying, oh no, these are my values and this is what I should be doing and this, blah, 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 blah. And almost like this feeling that I have, like this energy that I'm talking with. Take a breath. Remember that the power of your fire is to ignite through your root and channel that up your system and come back to that centeredness. What's really, really beautiful is that, yes, this fellow here is moving through the chaos, absolutely. But there is something very poised about him. Boom, this thing flies at him and he's like, okay, take a breath, and we move that way. And then we move this way. And then we move that way. Yes, there's things flinging at him, but the training and the mastery that he has experienced means that he knows exactly which way he needs to fling and he needs to move. The second are an interesting pair, but at least we're coming to the end of a cycle. So, we received the 9 of Swords, and we also received the 10 of Swords. When things are stripped away, which often they are during a period like this, and because this full moon is also, by the way, this full moon eclipse is very much anchored with, is aligning with the North Node. So it's remembered that yes, there is a releasing, yes, there is a taking away, but this is so that we can move into both a collective and personal alignment with the trajectory of the evolution of this planet, so that we can truly step into the Dharma and the things that we are meant to embody. So the 9 of Swords, it tells me, yes, all of these crows and all of these ravens or crows, whichever they are coming and flinging my way, and this is a card of nightmares, of worries, of anxieties. But this is also often a card that comes to remind us that not everything that our mind tells us is true. Our mind, our ego, doesn't like to lose. It doesn't like the unknown. It doesn't like uncertainty. It will often only make moves and jumps knowing that there is 100% certainty and 100% laid out plan and landing. And often it doesn't work like that. So it's a reminder that yes, your mind may attempt to convince you of things, but also perhaps what is happening, because we have the 10 of Swords here, there is an ending, right? There is an ending, which means that we have these belief systems are coming to the surface. These worries, these anxieties, they're coming to the surface of what potentially is either being stripped away or what is being presented in our reality because of the collective field, which is in a lot of worry and grief, which are all valid and relevant. But there is an ending here. There is a surrendering to this process, because what happens after this is the next level, it's the next stage, it's the beginning, it's a new opening. And there's a reminder that what is being exposed right now is that sometimes we need things to be ripped away from us so that we can finally understand what we actually believe about our reality, about who we can be, about what we can do, about the reality of human nature, and they have to be exposed so that they can be alchemized. So it's not necessarily always easy, but it's important that we remember that. I'm going to quickly take a sip of water. Okay. So our final card out of the tarot is the 6 of Wands. So this reminds me, and there's also another card in the Dragon deck, which is really, really beautiful, which reminds us is that all that is being taken away is making room for this, for the ability to succeed, to the ability to be the victor of our own life. Sometimes we must strip away people, situations, habits. We must expose beliefs, thought forms that do not serve us so that we can get to the end. But at the same time, what I also really, really see this as, this card doesn't always indicate that, but I am getting this message for it today, is it reminding us that sometimes we move towards our blooming, we move towards our success in a way that comes from survival, that causes us to feel like we're going to burn out because we're so adamant to achieve that success. And perhaps, this is what this ending of belief systems is trying to show certain some of you, is remembering that what is it that I'm running for? Is it really all worth it, or have I been made to believe that it is so because that is what we have been programmed to believe? So it's yes, that success is coming, but there's a way that we get to go about this going forward. And I actually forgot to mention this earlier, but it's also a piece of guidance that I have been getting as of late that I want to talk about now, and it's coming. As I saw this now, I got reminded of it, and I think it's a really important message for people, is that capitalism, or even if it's not capitalism, but the society that we have been built into, often teaches us that it is the things that we can calculate, it is the things that we can measure, and the things that we can produce that are the most important thing that we can do in this life. But the reality is that when you die, and there's so much about remembering how to die well during the season, is a reminder that, very simply, that all of those belongings and those metrics are not the things that you're going to be taken to the grave. And they're not the things that people are going to remember you for. There's a very famous saying that many of us know, that people will not remember what you did for them, they will not remember what you acquired or who you are, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that is extremely important during this time. Our flower card from the Magic of the Flowers is Carnation. And carnation is this beautiful flower that reminds us that we are a phoenix transforming. What is being taken away from us is for us. The highest version of Scorpio is the phoenix. And the phoenix is the one that knows how to burn through itself, onto itself, so that it can rise again. And so there is a reminder of that. And then we have our two beautiful dragon cards. And this is what made me very, very happy about. Yes, there is some intensity around this, but there's also a lot of beauty. So we got the Emerald Dragon, brings in healing and cosmic abundance. Good fortune is coming. Let your thoughts support your divine perfection, align with your fifth dimensional blueprint. And this is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful card. And even the energy from it, it's a cornucopia of roses here. And I absolutely love it. And this is a reminder of what the energy of Taurus holds. We have been in Uranus and Taurus this whole time. So Uranus, which is this great rebel, right? Changing and shifting things in Taurus, is a reminder of how we look at what abundance really means. How we look at the resources in our life, the distribution of land, how we look at generational wealth. And so there is a reminder that beauty, like I mentioned before, that certain abundance is on the way for those, especially for those who are willing and are being called to serve. But there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, and to make space for it. And there's something, let your thoughts support divine perfection, your divine perfection. It's a reminder that thoughts are being exposed so that we can make room for new ones. Because what we are willing to believe about the world, we speak out into the world and are able to see. and reality reflects that, some part of that to us. Our last card for this reading is the gold and silver violet flame dragon. Transmute the old around you with wisdom and grace. It's time for transmutation, magic, and healing. Offer service under grace. This is exactly what I spoke about even before we sat down for the reading, is that this is a time of binding, of banishing, of cord cutting, of cleansing, and of letting go. This is a reminder for magical folk, those who engage in ritual, that you are, I have been saying it to myself and I'm going to say it to you, that you are that witch. You are that medicine woman. You are that curandero, shaman in training. That you have the ability to let go. You are the alchemist who is able to let those things go. Do not underestimate the power of your own magic during this season. Use it to your advantage. You get to make physical choices, but you also get to make energetic choices. So trust them. I have rambled for 45 minutes, so I'm going to leave it as that. I am leaving you with some of that Samhain information, with some of that information about the eclipse period also, and that reading. If you would like a reading with me, I will leave down below the link to be able to set up sessions. I am available in Cyprus in person, but I'm also available online for my international community. I am wishing you guys the most wonderful Venus day, the first Venus day of Scorpio season, and I am wishing you guys as easeful as possible transition and movement through this eclipse that is happening tomorrow, and I'm wishing you a lot of adventure and honoring and veneration and support through the beauty and the potential and the power of the dark. Endless love to you all. So many kisses. Talk to you guys very, very soon.